My parents are demanding that I give away the money from my wedding gifts so my sister can get cosmetic surgery and find love again after cheating on her husband with her boss. I got married last month, and it was everything we could have hoped for. The ceremony was beautiful, with about 120 guests, mostly family and close friends. My husband's family is well off, not absurdly rich, but definitely comfortable, and they generously covered most of the wedding expenses. My husband and I were incredibly grateful for their support. As is common, we received monetary gifts from our guests, totaling around $15,000. It wasn't something we had planned for, but it was a nice bonus, something we thought we'd save or maybe use for small home projects in the future. To give you some context about my family, I have an older sister who has always been the favorite. She got married 6 years ago to her college boyfriend, and from the outside, her life seemed perfect. They had a beautiful house, traveled often, and looked happy together. But about a year ago, that illusion shattered when it came out that she had been having an affair with her boss for almost 2 years. After the divorce was finalized, she moved back in with our parents. Since then, my sister hasn't been doing well. She gained weight during the stress of the divorce, stopped going out as much, and generally seemed lost. Our parents did what they always do, spoiled her and tried to make her feel better in every possible way. 3 days after my wedding, my parents invited me over for dinner. I thought it would just be a chance to catch up, maybe to talk about the wedding. After some small talk, they brought up how lucky I was to have married into money, not my husband himself, but the money, and how I didn't really need the wedding gifts we had received. Then they got to the real reason they'd invited me. They wanted me to give my sister the $15,000 from our wedding gifts so she could have a post-divorce makeover. They didn't know the exact amount we had received, but they knew it was money. They listed things like plastic surgery, new clothes suited to her needs, spa treatments, even a personal trainer, basically a full lifestyle reset so she could rebuild her confidence and eventually meet someone new. My mom went on, saying, "You're going to be a housewife anyway, so it's not like you need the money. Your sister needs to get back out there, and you've already caught your man." For context, my husband and I had talked about the possibility of me taking a break from my teaching job for a while, maybe to start a family, but that was a private decision between us, not something we'd asked my parents' opinion on. I told them, "Thanks for the laughs," and left. Update 1. About 2 days after the family gathering where we laughed ourselves to tears over my parents' ridiculous request, my phone started blowing up with messages from them. They created a group chat with my husband, my sister, and me, insisting that we come over to their house to clear the air and make peace. My husband and I refused. We told them I had an ingrown toenail and that the car ride could be fatal. They kept insisting, but we didn't reply. In the end, they made a video call, them from their house, us from ours, which we accepted, mostly for the laughs. My sister was already there, slumped on the couch like a pile of dirty laundry. My mom had gone all out with dinner, laying out every one of our favorite dishes, which I immediately recognized as her usual tactic. "Look, I cooked for you, so now you can get off your butt and come home to forgive me." I told them, "No, that's not happening." My dad jumped right in, saying that the biggest disappointment of his life was that night. My mom suggested I should put my jealousy aside and stop deliberately hurting my sister. My sister started moaning in the background, like I'd just stabbed her with a bayonet in the middle of World War I, convinced her life was ending because there weren't proper medical conditions to save her. I also invented a little game, and once my husband caught on, he joined in. Basically, whenever my sister groaned, I clapped. Yes, it was a bit immature, but when you're dealing with a 4-year-old, you don't reason with them, you just play along. That's exactly what I did with my parents and their 3-year-old maturity level. Then I got serious. I took a deep breath and told them that clearly, not even $15,000 would fix my sister. First, she was ugly. Second, she was a cheater, and many people knew it. Third, plastic surgeons aren't miracle workers. And fourth, I think I already mentioned she was ugly. My sister finally spoke up, probably because I'd called her ugly 3 times. "No, it's not that she's ugly, but at least as a person, she is. Through tears, she admitted that she had never actually asked them to demand money from me. She explained that she'd just mentioned feeling insecure about dating again and wishing she could afford some self-care treatments, but our parents took that and ran with it, deciding on their own that my wedding gifts should fund her makeover. What followed was a 3-hour-long conversation, though I didn't stay long enough to witness all of it, that dug up decades of family dysfunction. My parents obviously denied it and said it was her idea, while my sister insisted she would never have made such a ridiculous request. My mom claimed they only did it because she asked, and my sister said they must think she's ugly, which is why they wanted the money in the first place. I just clapped whenever someone groaned, and that was that. After a while, I realized they weren't even paying attention to me anymore, so we hung up. I have no idea how much longer the call lasted. The next day, I got a surprising text from my aunt, my mom's sister. She asked if we could have lunch, just the two of us, sandwiches at her favorite cafe, her treat. I wasn't going to say no to free food. We ate like two starving dogs and then got down to business. Apparently, this wasn't the first time my parents had tried to organize a money collection for my sister. When our grandmother passed away 5 years ago, she left each grandchild a small inheritance, $5,000 each. My aunt overheard my parents pressuring my cousin James to loan his share to my sister so she could make the down payment on her house, the same house she later shared with her ex-husband. Their reasoning? James didn't need it as much, since he was still in college and living at home. James refused, which led to a temporary family fallout I hadn't even known about. Yesterday, my sister texted me asking if we could meet for coffee, just the two of us, without involving our parents. I was planning to say no, but my husband said he'd missed out on my conversation with my aunt and the sandwiches, so he wasn't going to miss this one. I finally agreed. I don't know what to expect, but my husband doesn't want to miss the gossip. He said if I don't want him at the same table, he can sit nearby pretending to read a newspaper. Then he added that he's not even sure where to find one these days, but told me to leave the details to him. I honestly don't know if I'll laugh more at what my sister has to say or at my husband playing private detective. I guess we'll find out soon enough. Update 2. My husband and I got to the cafe a few minutes early so he could get ready. He had somehow found an old newspaper that he planned to use to hide his face when my sister arrived, which she did not long after. She greeted me and immediately asked why my husband was sitting 2 tables away, hiding behind a newspaper. I told her he just wanted to make sure I actually came to the meeting. She said she didn't mind if he sat with us. I stood up to call him over, but he had already ordered himself a coffee and something to eat, and he wasn't about to share. So he stayed there, reading his ancient newspaper with headlines from 1998. After some awkward small talk about my husband sitting at another table and the coffee orders, my sister surprised me by sliding an envelope across the table. For a second, I thought it was the secret nuclear launch codes. The whole thing felt like a spy movie scene. She didn't say a word, just slid the envelope toward me, while a Russian spy, that is, my husband, ate like he hadn't been fed properly in communist Russia, or as I like to call it, my parents' house. Inside the envelope was a handwritten letter, an apology. She said she needed to write it down because if she tried to say it in person, it wouldn't come out right. Well, spoiler, it didn't come out right in writing either. She wanted me to read it there, so I had to. I felt sorry for my husband, but I wasn't going to read it aloud. Still, I could tell he was sneaking glances, and I knew he was following every word. I also kept looking up at my sister every time a sentence sounded strange, like when she wrote that she knew I'd always envied her when we were younger, and that she understood why I held so much resentment toward her. I looked her straight in the eyes and said something like, "I've always thought you were ugly." The letter went on with more things like that, where apparently I was the bad sister, but she forgave me because I had so many flaws. In theory, it was supposed to be an apology letter from her to me, but it turned into an apology from me to her so fast I didn't even notice the switch. When I finished, I set the letter down on the table, right on top of my coffee, which had spilled a little. Some might say I did it on purpose. She asked what I thought. I said I thought my husband should be the one to read it, and he did, a minute later, taking it back to his table. as for what I thought of it, everything she'd written was nonsense. My sister said that was unfair and revealed she'd started seeing a therapist right after the big blow-up at our parents' house. The therapist apparently helped her see how having a damaged relationship with a sister could show up in different areas of her life, like infidelity. At that point, I thought she was wasting her money. Either there was no therapist, or the therapist had misunderstood everything. Knowing my sister, all three possibilities might be true. But yes, you're not misreading that. Apparently, her cheating was my fault, because our relationship had always been troubled. So when her marriage hit the rough patches that every marriage does, instead of working through it, she sought validation from her boss, who was more than happy to tell her how amazing and beautiful she was. And that, she said, was also my fault. Something she had come to realize through therapy. The craziest part came when my sister admitted she had spent years resenting me for having a more genuine relationship with my husband than she ever had with her ex. You two actually like each other, she said. You're friends, you laugh together, and you do things like come to a cafe together, like a team. That was honestly the most heartfelt thing she said all afternoon, and it caught me off guard a bit. Still, it wasn't enough to soften me. We had already been at the cafe for quite a while, and my husband thought I hadn't noticed that he was already on his third cup of coffee and third slice of apple pie. At that rate, he wasn't going to sleep all night, or fit through the door later. 3 days later, it was time for the monthly family dinner, a tradition at my aunt's house that had supposedly been passed down from generation to generation. In reality, it had only been going for about a year, but my husband likes his little detective adventures, and I've got nothing but narcissistic parents and sisters. When we arrived, my sister was already there, helping in the kitchen. The atmosphere was tense, with my mom forcing an overly cheerful conversation, pretending like nothing had ever happened, maybe trying to erase the shame from last time. But that cheerful tone didn't last long, because soon enough, another argument broke out between my parents and my sister. My sister had a job interview coming up, and my dad thought it would be a good idea if I lent her something nice to wear. Under normal circumstances, I wouldn't have minded, but after everything, I preferred to stay out of it. I didn't even get the chance to say no because my sister immediately played the victim, saying she didn't need charity and didn't want to bother me anymore. I knew exactly what she was doing, playing the cool sister who defends me in front of our parents. My mom jumped in, saying my sister might need something nice to wear and that it wouldn't be any trouble for me. Everyone at the table was watching the back and forth, saying nothing, just shifting their eyes as the conversation went on. I only threw in a few comments here and there, mostly to defend myself. My sister didn't want to accept the clothes my parents were offering on my behalf because, according to her, nothing I owned would fit or suit her since we had different tastes. The problem was, by different tastes, she really meant my clothes aren't good enough for her. So I said, well, I've got a Halloween clown costume you could borrow, and if you give me a little time, I can find 2 more for Mom and Dad. I just need to take their measurements first. All 3 of them glared at me, and everyone else at the table gave us that look, the one that says, "Can't you see we've got something nice going here? Don't ruin it." The only sounds at the table were my parents and my sister arguing, and the rest of the family eating while watching them, like it was dinner theater. The only thing missing was the sound of someone loudly slurping soup. It wasn't exactly a shouting match, more like one of those fake sincere exchanges where people pretend to be kind but clearly aren't. My parents kept saying, "We're only doing this because we care about you," and my sister replied, "I know, I love you too, and I appreciate that you care, but it's not necessary." I couldn't have predicted what came next. My dad finally shouted, "Enough. You're going to wear Ope's clothes whether you like it or not, and whether Ope likes it or not." And my sister screamed back, "No, you're going to wear Ope's clothes whether you like it or not, and whether Mom likes it or not." Which, honestly, is probably what will happen. Thankfully, my husband had already finished eating and was just sitting there with his arms crossed, watching. Otherwise, there might have been a mashed potato-related accident involving his nose. A lot more was said after that, but that was the highlight of the night, at least at my aunt's house. My sister left soon after to spend the night at our parents' place, and the gossip probably continued there. My husband half-jokingly suggested that we drive over and peek through the window just to see what was going on, but I shut that down immediately. I hate to be the killjoy of the gossip party, but if anyone saw us all pressed up against the window, they'd probably call the police. As of last night, we haven't heard anything else, and nothing has shown up in the homicide section of the local digital newspaper, so I guess that's a good sign. Update 3. The most important thing I have to tell you is about my sister, or at least, the most surprising thing for me. Last weekend, she asked if she could stay with us for a few days. Apparently, things at our parents' house are, as we say here, not good. My husband actually wanted to sell the TV and say yes, because he thought nothing on earth could possibly top that kind of entertainment. He was even counting on my parents showing up at our house to make a scene. Some people have suggested that maybe I've let my husband read too many Reddit stories. Maybe they're right. We should probably work on that. But no, we didn't let her stay. There was no way I was going to let my Karen of a sister move in here, and my husband was only joking. Sure, he's the gossip husband, but even he has limits. A few days later, she asked my aunt the same thing, who basically told her that one dinner together was enough gossip for the whole month. Someone else in the family said she'd asked them too. There may be more victims of this, but at least we haven't heard about them yet. 2 days ago, she said she'd been thrown out, or at least that's how she put it. It wasn't so much that she didn't want to live with our parents anymore, it seems they were the ones who got tired of her. I imagine they put her in a box labeled "Adopt Me" and left her on someone's doorstep. As for our parents, I think they're planning to adopt a chimpanzee next. They said it would be easier to train and a lot less ugly. Not a joke. I honestly don't know why I haven't talked to them, and I can't say I've worried much either. As for the wedding gift money that started all this drama, my husband and I have stayed true to our plan. We've started the first phase of our kitchen renovation, new countertops and backsplash, and we're hoping the results will be beautiful. We're even planning to invite my sister and our parents to the grand opening. Just kidding, of course. Though I can't speak for my husband, he might actually host a huge barbecue just to stir up a little drama for fun. He'd even invite friends, make it a dinner and a show type of evening. As long as he doesn't have to wash the dishes afterward, he can host as many barbecues as he wants. Update 4. It's been almost a full year since my last update. A lot has happened, but nothing really dramatic enough to write about. Many of you encouraged my husband to host that barbecue after the renovations. He read all your comments but, at the end of the day, said that washing dishes didn't exactly motivate him. So, sorry to disappoint those of you who were hoping for another family reunion filled with drama and front-row gossip. My sister got a job, according to the information that reached me through my husband's spy network. One of his co-workers has a wife who works at the same place where my sister was hired. To be a good spy, you need solid contacts, right? That was a while ago. After moving around for a bit, my sister eventually got an apartment of her own. For a while, there wasn't much drama, mostly because there wasn't any communication between her and our parents either. Until the dog arrived. She had actually bought, a purebred dog because, of course, she wasn't going to settle for a mutt from the shelter. The problem was that she didn't have the time, patience, or money to care for it properly. Walks, training, feeding, bathing, all those things you're supposed to do with a living creature under your care, yeah, none of that happened. The dog started destroying things in her apartment, basic puppy stuff when they have too much energy, like pillows, lamps, even doing its business indoors. From my aunt, I later learned that there had been a secret meeting between my sister and our parents. It took place at my sister's apartment, though I don't know exactly what was said. Sorry, I don't have cameras everywhere. The supposed purpose of this meeting was to convince our parents to take in her dog, at least until our dad could train it. We had a few dogs growing up, so my dad has some experience. But I can guess how that went, because of what happened afterward. My parents said no. My sister's real plan was probably to fix things with them, get back her golden child status, and then dump the furry beast on them. So, on to plan B, she waited until they were at work, used her house key, and dropped the dog off inside their house. Before I tell you what the dog did inside, let me just say, the dog is fine. My dad eventually found someone at work to adopt it. The relationship with that coworker, however, might never recover. The dog apparently graduated from naughty to destructive while staying at my parents' place. In addition to the things it had already ruined at my sister's apartment, it now had more space, and more targets. My mom's collection of cherub figurines? Destroyed. Don't ask me why she collects those. My parents' bed? Torn apart and pooped on. The dinner my mom had prepared? Eaten and spread all over the living room. Though, in the dog's defense, what was spread everywhere might have been what came out after eating it. I was taught to be fair, not by my parents, obviously. My husband, who had basically hijacked the conversation with my aunt, was getting more excited with every detail. My parents had come home from work and thought they'd been robbed, until they saw a dog. My dad asked if that wasn't my sister's dog, and my mom confirmed it was. So naturally, my dad wanted to kill both the dog and my sister. He calmed down eventually and gave the dog up for adoption, the dog, not my sister, though I'm not entirely sure he doesn't still want to kill her. Of course, they called her to not only demand she pay for the damages but also come clean up the mess herself. She refused. After my dad gave the dog away, my sister called again to complain that it was her dog and he had no right to give it away. I think what she really wanted was for him to sell it and give her some of the money back. She even threatened to report them for stealing her dog. My dad told her she could go ahead, but he'd be filing a counter-report for property damage and renovations. So far, no legal action has been taken by either side, though if it came down to it, my parents would definitely win. Deep down, though, she's still their golden child. Update 5. Hello, do you smell what I smell? It smells like a final update. I think it's time to close the chapter and leave my parents and my sister behind. We haven't been in contact for a long time, and the only news that reaches me comes through my aunt or whatever my husband uncovers. We had agreed that the dog had been stolen, in quotes, when really she'd left it in my parents' care without asking, and they gave it to someone who could look after it. My sister tracked down that family and then stole it back, and I mean literally stole it, because I haven't seen the footage myself, only heard about it. You'd expect that if your own dog saw you, it would want to go with you. This dog, whom I'll call Max because I like that name for a dog, acted like my sister didn't exist. So Max was taken against his will in the middle of the day. Yes, I'm not saying it was some elaborate, clever kidnapping, she was caught on camera and by neighbors. But to my sister's Martian logic, she was recovering her property. I'm no lawyer, but that argument falls apart once you factor in negligence and abandonment, plus the police and the owner's lawyer, the people the dog had actually bonded with. Long story short, they explained that to my sister, who ended up having to pay a $500 fine for stealing the dog plus financial compensation. See, to get into the backyard she'd had to break the small lock on the gate, so she lost the dog, the $500, and the compensation. Still, she had a little more care and energy left in her. She filed a complaint against my parents in the middle of her mini trial against the real owners to prove she only asked them to watch the dog for a few days. She failed miserably, she couldn't prove any of it. My parents showed the damage and explained they understood my sister had abandoned the dog, so that was that. Even so, my parents didn't sue my sister, and her partner basically told her to keep his crazy family away from him. It's hard not to feel offended, though I'd always pray to be better than that, because I'm part of that family. No contact, sure, but we're tied by blood and some damn piece of paper I'd like to burn. Thanks to my aunt, I know there were some extra problems at my sister's work because of the whole thing, not the kind that gets you fired, but her coworker spoke badly about my dad, and with good reason. My parents didn't want to get into it much, so that's all I know. I'm at a point in my life where my parents or sister can pull whatever stunt they want and I just won't care enough to update about it, unless my sister adopts an ant, irradiates it until it mutates, and the ant eats my parents. Edit, I'm making that edit just to imagine people's faces thinking my sister adopted an ant.